Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Hamdi here, talking to you from Tunis. I'm the Hult Prize on campus program global manager. It's my pleasure to welcome you, whether you are a campus director, a competitor, an organizer, a community builder. It's our pleasure to have you joining us live or watching this recorded session about our Food for Good challenge. This session is mainly about taking you through the 2021 Hult Prize Challenge. We have three main points to discuss in this call. We're going to go over the challenge. We're going to explain it to you. We're going to cover the scorecard that our on-campus programs judges will be using to guide their conversations on how to select the best teams of the on-campus programs. And we're, of course, going to talk a little bit about your programs finals to get you ready for the exciting part. Today, we're bringing our A game. We're bringing you phenomenal speakers and that will be delivering this session. I'm going to give the floor to our own Hult Prize Global Director of Accelerator Programs, Instructions and Content, Callum Porter-Harris, who will be joined by our own Chief Academic Officer and the co-author of the Hult Prize 2021 Challenge, to take you through this exciting journey. Callum, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Hamdi. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for all of the hard work that you're doing to get our on-campus program around the world. And then also, I'm just going to have to mute this guy. And also congratulations to the entrepreneurs or the competitors this year when you eventually get this recording. It's amazing. It's a big challenge to take on, and I really hope that you can build some startups that can change the world. I'd also just let Phil give a quick introduction before we fully kick off.
Yeah, I'm so pumped up to be with you guys today, share with you the 2021 challenge. We're just super excited about it. I'm Phil Auerswald. I am the Chief Academic Officer for the Hult Prize Foundation, as Hamdi said. And one of my primary responsibilities in that role is to co-author this challenge document. So like I said, really excited to share it with you.
Great, thanks a lot, Phil. So just quickly, the agenda for today. So first off, we're going to be understanding the Food for Good challenge. Then we'll look at the scorecard for this year. And then we got a few tips for the on-campus final. Now, as we jump into understanding the Food for Good challenge, we're going to begin with this year's challenge video. If you haven't watched it already, this should be very exciting for you. And if you have, it should still be very exciting for you.
Yeah, it's always good.
Amazing. Hopefully that's got everyone really into the mood for today's session. And hopefully you learn a lot from that video, because it really sums up the problem as well as the potential solutions to create enterprises in the food for good sector. As our challenge one-liner, this year we're asking youth around the world to build food for good startups. And these startups ideally will create meaningful jobs. They'll stimulate the economies. We'll start to reimagine the way food is produced all the way to it's consumed and what's it's done after we've consumed it, and improve the outcomes of at least 10 million people by 2030. And so we're really looking to improve lives around the concept of food. Now, why does this matter so much? And what is happening globally? Actually, the food industry is causing a lot of problems. You can look at a third of all food produced is wasted. We've got climate change, where agriculture is accounting for 20% of greenhouse gases and is causing the ocean temperatures to rise. We've lost 90% of the world's biodiversity. And it's so hard to get a healthy meal. Even 3 billion people just don't have access to a regular healthy meal. So there is unlimited number of insane statistics out there about what's going on when it comes to the world of food and the problems that we face. Now, trying to summarize that a little bit and categorize that a little bit for this year's challenge, we're looking at the diets of people, the climate change, the meat industry, what's happening in our oceans, and closest to my heart is what's happening to our world's biodiversity. But it's very important for all of you out there to understand that this problem of food is very connected, and there is actually so many more social issues and problems that need to be solved as we look into this challenge. But the crazy thing, or the opposite side of this, is that there's unlimited business opportunities. Everybody every day eats, and that accounts to at least a third of all GDP, or $4.2 trillion by 2024. This is an industry that everybody can get into, everybody can make money in. There is billions of people essentially involved with this, the industry, the making, the consuming of food. But the industry is completely failing us, and it's not set up to be sustainable. It's not set up to be nutritious, and it's certainly not set up for your benefit and our planet's benefit. So this is a real problem, and we really need everybody to commit to figuring out what part of this massive problem they're going to solve and commit to their dimension of impact for this year's challenge. Now I'm going to hand it to Phil to talk a little bit about how we got here.
So point one that Callum made in the last few minutes is that this year's challenge really requires systems thinking. When we think about food, it's not just what's on our plate. It's where it came from and all of the different systems that food has been connected with from the time it was grown to the time it's consumed. Now, when we talk about all the challenges that Callum summarized, one of the parts of systems thinking is to understand how we got here. And so one of the primary ways we got here is through our own evolution as a species. When we were, on the African savanna, the cradle of humanity on the African continent, a million years ago, 500,000 years ago, 200,000 years ago, nutrients were scarce. In order to get protein, we had to track animals for days, track big game for days, and expended a lot of energy. Anything that was sweet or fat or salty was in very short supply. And so when we came across something that's sweet, our brains are hardwired to gorge on it, berries, whatever we might find. Well, the problem is that in a highly organized, complex modern society, that all of those attributes of food that used to be rare are now abundant. And in fact, they're manufactured to appeal to our genetically hardwired tastes. So when we think about industry, it's not so much that industry itself is against nutrition. It's that industry is competing with itself to appeal to our hardwired desires for foods that, when taken in excess, are not healthy for us. So it's really almost a challenge against our own nature, as well as against the nature of industry, to evolve the food system so that we appeal to those things that we desire, but also so that we create a food system that truly nourishes us, truly nourishes our families, and draws upon the best in our own traditions of what makes food food for good. So I think we'll just take the next slide. Now, thinking about a system also means really understanding every stage of the food supply chain. And the importance of this slide is that it will give all of the teams who participate some points of entry into designing solutions to the challenge. So there may be solutions that are in stage one, growing food. And obviously there's a lot of innovation that can happen in agriculture, and a lot of innovation that can happen not just from the standpoint of food, but from also from the standpoint of the well-being of farmers. And those are legitimate responses to this year's challenge in terms of job creation, meaningful work, and improving the structure of the farming system. And then we go all the way through distribution, storing, processing, wholesaling, and then of course consuming. The supply chain itself is something that can be an opportunity for innovation in terms of data and tracking. And then everything around consuming food, obviously, when we think about the retail dimension, thinking about consumer behaviors, shaping behaviors, education, understanding where food is coming from, and really what the value of food is in nutrition. All of those are elements. And of course, just that it tastes good. So, and then finally, there's all the issues that Callum referred to, having to do with waste and disposing of food, and really thinking about the full cycle of the supply chain. Next slide. So this is the one most important slide that we're going to present today, and it's the one most important part of the challenge for you to understand as campus directors. I said that the first element is really systems thinking, and the systems thinking is about the nature of the problem. It's about the historical nature of how we got here. It's about the nature of the supply chain. Those are all systems that the teams are going to want to have in mind, but they don't really define the challenge itself. The challenge itself is defined in this slide, and it has these 7 elements plus one wild card. So what are they? Access, meaningful work, environmental stewardship, local sourcing, supply chain innovation, and radical substitution. Access, in some ways, is the most evident, that we really want access to nutritious food to be affordable and accessible to everybody on the planet, and not just for the few, where now nutritious food has become a luxury rather than the right that it should be. Meaningful work recognizes the fact that there are people engaged in every stage of the supply chain, and part of the challenge this year of Food for Good is making it food for good for the people who work in the food systems. Environmental stewardship, obviously all of the different ways that the food system interacts with the natural environment, including issues of climate change. Variety is really important because it's about understanding how, as industry has increasingly come to dominate the production of food, we've had a reduction in the variety of options that are available to people. So these are issues of monoculture and large-scale agriculture, where in any given culture, in any given country, any given part of the world, you might have had tremendous varieties of different types of food that people have consumed, and over time those have narrowed. So part of the challenge is to broaden those again and to find the deep variety of foods that has existed historically. Local sourcing, we talk in the challenge about how sourcing locally is not always the preferred option. And in some instances, for example, in the case of variety, we may be looking for unusual foods from around the world and seeking out variety at a distance. However, there are going to be great opportunities to find local sources for nutritious food and to develop local supply chains, and in that way deindustrialize the supply chain. So that's one dimension that you can look at in addition to the others. Supply chain innovation, as I said, tracking data, all the elements that would actually change the nature of the supply chain. And then finally, radical substitution, the one that example that comes most readily to mind is meat substitutes and Impossible Foods, Beyond Meat, that have gotten a lot of attention. And so where we've got lab grown meats that replace the beef and other livestock that are significant contributors to climate change, and of course involve other ethical issues that are of great concern to many people. And then finally, I just wanted to mention there was one last one there, the wild card, which is that your team should not feel constrained by the 7. And I want to emphasize that this number 8 is not in the challenge document itself, but it should be in your mind as a campus director that the teams do not have to address the challenge in only these 7 dimensions. These 7 dimensions cover a lot of possible change, but if the teams come up with another dimension they think is important, they don't feel fits in these 7, we are certainly open to that. We're looking for all types of responses to this challenge that work towards food for good. Okay, thanks. Now I'm ready for the next slide. So how have we described to you and to the teams how to envision pathways for change along the dimensions that I just described in those 7+1? The way that we've done it primarily is just by offering some examples. And of course, beyond the short descriptions that we have here, the teams and you as campus directors can simply Google these companies and learn more about what they're doing. But what we've done is we've offered the name of the companies, and then you can see next to the name, the dimensions of the challenge that they're addressing. So Aquamu has been one of our Hult Prize team, was just recently mentioned in a tweet from the government of Japan, acknowledged for the exciting work that they're doing in building solar-powered tilapia farms in Nigeria. And so they are addressing issues of access, local sourcing, environmental sustainability, meaningful work, and supply chain innovation. Those are all dimensions that they're addressing, and that's the code across the top. So again, these are all in the challenge document. We're going to go through just 3 right now in a little bit more detail.
Great, thanks a lot, Phil. So the first company we want to talk about is TuneArt. TuneArt, literally, they just went through our accelerator the last year. So we're obviously very proud of all the progress they're making. And the crazy statement that they always used to make is why, when they from Guatemala want to eat tuna that lives literally just 100 miles off their coast, does that tuna need to be captured, taken all the way to Japan, or mainly Asia for processing, to then come all the way back for their consumption? The environmental impact is huge, and they saw an opportunity to create mainly meaningful work for local fishermen who could actually go out into the local ocean, the local seas, and generate a greater income and not have to resort to environmentally damaging fishing practices, such as using bombs, or when they would catch fish like tuna, they would actually just they would kill them and then they would just throw them back over, because they didn't have, which is what TuneArt's solution is, a local processing plant. So they were creating access like locally in the local market for tuna. They were creating meaningful work, and they were also locally sourcing the fresh fish. And so this was a startup that we went through our accelerator last year and is now going on to generate revenue and actually beginning to change the world.
Newly is a company in Nigeria founded by an entrepreneur by the name of Ada Osakwe. And Newly's story illustrates the value of systems thinking as a way of understanding entrepreneurial design. Ada Osakwe was in finance and at a very high level, and then in the Nigerian government. And she was working on issues related to agriculture in the Nigerian government. And in that role, she was surprised to find how extensive the importation of food was to Nigeria. She had been aware of it, but she didn't realize how dominant it was. And she was astonished, given the tremendous agricultural resources of Nigeria, how disproportionately dependent Nigeria is on imported food. And as she looked into this question more deeply, she began to understand that it wasn't just simply an issue of agricultural output, it was an issue of agricultural demand. And any of you who are on this call, I know many of the campus directors across the world have family experience in the agricultural business. We've gotten a lot of feedback on this year's challenge from people who are part of our Hult Prize community, who are personally connected to this industry. And so you certainly will understand that it's not enough just to produce efficiently. There have to be markets for what you produce. And so what Ada Osakwe focused on was growing the market for high quality nutrition. And so this company is a farm-to-table beverage and restaurant brand that provides meaningful work. It provides access to nutritious, affordable food. It's focused on environmental sustainability, but it's also focused on local sourcing and making sure that there is a market in Nigeria for the best food for Nigerians.
And our third example that we're going to cover today is Falafel Inc. So in 2017, the Hult Prize actually launched the Refugee Challenge. And so we were looking for startups that year that could understand the human potential of refugees and how underemployed or unemployed they are often, and the discrimination that they face when arriving into a new country. Now, actually, our founder of the Hult Prize, Ahmad Ashkar, actually launched Falafel Inc. in response to the Hult Prize challenge that year. And some of the key talking points about Falafel Inc. is that they offer very affordable pricing with access to highly nutritional meals. At the same time, they look to use sustainable packaging, and they integrate giving, where they partnered with the World Food Program. So every time that you buy falafel at the shop, they're actually giving away meals in refugee camps. But in the direct response to the challenge, they were focusing on meaningful work and hiring local refugees in the United States and training them and developing that talent. And so this is another great example of a Hult Prize-based startup going on to solve the challenge, and should be able to serve as inspiration to all of the entrepreneurs out there to see how we can come together as a community to launch such startups. Phil, do you want to add on to Falafel Inc. as well?
Well, yeah, we could just transition to the next slide. But as I do, I'll just say, how did our friend and Hult Prize founder, Ahmed Ashkar, come up with the notion of Falafel Inc.? The way he came up with it was that his mother every Friday evening would prepare the falafel that they would have at a Saturday brunch together as a family. And this ritual, this family ritual, was really what embedded in him a sense of the goodness of that food in his own life. And so, although the creation of Falafel Inc. was directly a response to our challenge that year, it really began with something very personal. And it began with an experience of family and an experience of something meaningful connected to food for Ahmed. And I think that for you all, this is, as campus directors, this is maybe the most important point to make with the teams about this year's challenge. That for everything that we've said, Callum started with a macro perspective on the challenge. We've got macro challenges, multi-trillion-dollar industry, all of these system elements that we talked about, all of the different pathways for impact. But the root of it, the foundation, is personal. And this is probably the most personal challenge that we've ever come up with at the Hult Prize now in 12 years. And so we really think it's an invitation for all of our global Hult Prize community, students around the world, students who've never heard of the Hult Prize, but who care about nutrition, who care about what they eat, and who care about how what they eat affects other people on the planet. This is the challenge for them. This is the year to participate. This is the year to build world-changing companies, to build billion-dollar companies that totally transform the nature of the food system. And this is the year the Hult Prize is going to make more impact than any other year that has come before. So we're so excited about this year's challenge, and we can't wait to see what happens with our global community as you, as campus directors, as the leading edge of the impact of the Hult Prize, as you mobilize and motivate student teams to really make the most of the opportunity that's in front of us. So really excited to share the challenge document with you today. And now Callum's going to go through a really important topic of the judges' scorecard. So you know, basically at the end of the day, how our team's going to be evaluated in terms of their success.
Great. So here is the scorecard for the 2021 on-campus program. And as campus directors, it's important that you help to communicate this to the teams so that they understand how they're going to be judged. And then obviously as the teams, you do not want to just focus on the scorecard only, but you do want to use it as a guide for you to figure out, are you going in the right direction? So first off, we'll begin with team. We really look for teams that are both diverse in their skill ranges and the skills that are required for the startup that they are building. They're committed and they show that through actual action, not just talk, and that they're able to impress us. It's essentially that they have been able to think through their idea deeply. They have been able to take action and commit to their project, and they're really ready to turn it from, say, a school project to an actual startup. And so this is all about the team. And also bear in mind, the team is not just the 3 or 4 co-founders that come together, but it's everybody that gets behind that team. It's the partners that they form. It's the professors that provide the mentorship. It's the their customers that become their advocates. It's everyone that can come behind an idea to make it real. Then when we look at the idea, obviously every startup has to have an idea, and we look for very cool, original, and innovative ideas so you can stand out from the crowd. We will have more than 100,000 startups this year. So you've really got to think, how am I going to be original and stand out? And then at the same time, you need to solve a specific food challenge. You need to look at the problems, the problem map, build your own problem map, get to the root problem, and then create an idea around the root problem. So you're really solving the challenge. And then you need to think about the human need. You need to think about humans, potentially their nutrition, their well-being. How are we making this people's lives better from this startup existing? And then we can go to impact. We've given you the Food for Good badges. It's really important that you can at least put 1, ideally 2 or 3 of these badges onto your startup. That way you can clearly quantify from the Food for Good challenge point of view, the impact that you're having. And also it's very important that every time that you're making $1 of revenue or a transaction, the impact is being generated, and that you can clearly articulate and explain to the judges how that impact is happening and what is essentially your theory of change. Then we look at traction. Traction is all about, have you actually done anything, or is this just still an idea on a piece of paper? Progress can be in the form of forming some partnerships, trying out some prototypes, actually making some sales with customers. And well, if you're able to do it, maybe even getting term sheets together, which is essentially that you're starting to raise investment capital or getting investors into your company. Of course, that's not a requirement at this stage, but if you have it, then you're going to definitely be able to stand out from the rest of the teams. And finally, we have our fifth category, which is the wow factor. We're looking for companies that can reach 10 million people. So you need to be able to scale. You need to be able to have people say, I want to join your team. When you tell them your idea, they're ready to commit, that they're emotionally affected by your startup and the presentation that you do, and essentially everything else that comes into your company and your idea that can help you to stand out. And also, it's very important that you understand what is a Hult Prize startup. What is our impact startup model? We have three main criteria that you need to be as a startup when you're participating. And as campus directors, you need to ensure that people are building these types of startups. One is you need to be impact centered. The way we define this is every time this company makes a sale, will there be a net positive impact on the world? So you need to think, it's not about giving or charity. It is about my company. When I make revenue, I create positive impact. Only then will you be a really self-sustaining, impact-driven, impact-centered, startup. Second is you need to be market-driven. What that means is you need to actually engage with the people that you're trying to help, ideally your customers, but your customers are not always your benefactors, and making sure that you're making market-based decisions and responses to them. So your company really exists to solve a clear market problem that exists in the world. And finally, profit-minded. You need to be very clear about your financials, about your business model. You need to understand things like your unit economics and how you're actually going to be a sustainable company and not, let's say, a charity or a company that doesn't have a viable financial model. Now we move to part 3, where we're going to focus a little bit on the on-campus final, because this is a very big challenge. It's a fairly challenging scorecard or startup that you need to build, and you're really going to have to focus on the on-campus final to deliver the startup that you've built. We want to start by explaining where you are in the whole program. So you're here at the on-campus program, and exciting, like Hamdi's team has done amazing to recruit more than 2,000 campus directors literally across the world. And you're the 300 or so that managed to join the Zoom. So good job to you to getting in today. And everyone at the on-campus program is really competing for a spot at our regional summits. We're going to have more than 50 of them around the world, probably about closer to 100 this year. And for the teams, it's really their job to try to represent their university or college to get a spot at that regional. They need to really impress and stand out on the final day. Once you go through the regionals, you'll join us at the accelerator program. And then eventually we'll narrow it down to 6 startups that will join the award ceremony in Gala, where we'll award the $1 million prize. So this is the journey that everyone is going on and everyone eventually wants to get to the United Nations. Now, your on-campus final. For the teams and for the campus directors, it's your time to shine. For the teams, this is their one shot almost, where they want to be able to say like why I should be representing the university to go to the next level and compete against universities across the world. We do have wildcards. We do have backup ways to get in, just get recommendations, but the on-campus final is the main clear pathway. Typically, we do 6-minute pitches and 4 minutes Q&A, but everyone needs to keep in mind that on-campus finals are unique. And for the campus directors, it's your event. We recommend 6 minutes, 4 minutes, but be creative if you want or if you need. Now for the teams, they need to be also prepared that judges may call them back and ask questions at any time. They may walk past you in lunch and they may say, hey, I had a question about your company, or they may formally call you back. Judges may also receive a business plan or a business canvas, depends on the campus final. So for the competitors, they really need to know what is the structure for their campus final so they can make the most of their opportunity. Now, when it comes time to present, you need to, your outfit is important. Dress well, dress smart, even if you're pitching online. Again, be clear, be precise, and be ready to pitch in English, as eventually regionals, the accelerator, the finals, everything is in English. So this is a skill that needs to be trained and ensured that it's also delivered at the on-campus level. Otherwise, teams are going to be at an unfair disadvantage when they move forward. Again, your body language, the confidence, the tone of the voice is important, but always be yourself and have fun. Judges really like people that are themselves, are authentic, and are open and ready for feedback and can share that passion for the startup that they're building. Now, this is my sort of advice to any competitor where first you work backwards. You need to identify when is your on-campus final. Is it in a week from now or is it in a month from now? And then once you have that date in mind, these are the 6 main key pillars. And as a campus director, you should also reinforce this. First off, you need to find your crew. You need to find your team and you need to get really aligned. Everyone needs to commit to the same goal and be very open with each other. It's okay if you're there just to have fun. It's okay if you're there to just put something on your CV. And it's okay if you're there to win the $1 million. But be open with each other about what it is your goal is and the time that you're able to commit. Second is you really need to understand the challenge. If you're not solving the challenge, you're not going to be able to win. So read the challenge document, go do your own research, essentially dig deeper, talk to people that are facing this problem, experts on the topic, and develop your empathy around the problem. And then eventually and ideally, you'll be able to come up with that breakthrough idea, what we call is an aha moment. And ideally, you can come up with lots of them, come up with lots of ideas, and then start to test them out, maybe prototype them, maybe talk to your professor or a subject matter expert and say, hey, what do you think about my idea? Get a lot of initial quick feedback so you can narrow down what it is that you really want to work on and prototype and actually start to build the very basics around this idea as a business, and then go for that pitch. Get ready for the on-campus final. Now, what to put into your pitch, or essentially for this year's challenge, how to make the perfect dish. Now, there's a lot that goes into a Hult Prize pitch. Of course, you're going to talk about the problem. You're going to talk about the impact that you're making. You don't want to forget that this is $1 million pitch. You are asking for $1 million. Don't shy away from that. You need to highlight how you make money, how you're going to run your business, what exactly is your solution, and why is this the best solution for the problem and better than all the competitors out there in the market already? What are your milestones? Like, what have you already done? And what are you going to do next? Especially, what are you going to do next to get better for regionals? And then after regionals into the accelerator, have a clear plan for the next 12 months. And then eventually a wild card ingredient, anything that you might want to sprinkle on top that makes your startup stand out from the pack. Could be helping to make you feel emotional. You could be building an inspirational presentation, or you could build a very action-driven presentation. These are sort of 3 maybe little ingredients that you could throw in to bring everything together. And in the chat, we have like a little challenge. If anyone can guess what the dish is that we were making with our ingredients of today. All right. And then finally, encourage people to learn from those who went before you. We are now in 2021. So this means it's our 12th challenge. This means we have hundreds of thousands of alumni that have gone through this before. You can look at the best of the best, those that got to the global finals. We have an amazing YouTube playlist where you could spend about 15 hours of watching Hult Prize final pitches, taking the best bits of each of them and putting them together into your startup and inspiring yourself to what level you want to get to. And then you can also reach out to alumni from your on-campus program who won the year before. You can reach out to the people that got to the accelerator. You can go on the internet and figure out who are the coaches and mentors at Hult Prize and reach out to them and get lots of great advice for them before you do your final pitch. Now we're going to head over to Q&A. I'm going to let Hamdi jump back in and help facilitate this. I know one question is, are we going to share the slides and are we going to share the recording? The answer is yes. I think it's been answered quite a few times. We will be sending an email. You'll be getting a package that you can use to share to the competitors, and you'll be getting a package that you can share to your judges that goes over the challenge, the scorecard, and essentially how to make the most of this opportunity.
Great. Thanks a lot, Callum. Thank you, Phil. I think I talk for everyone in this call and for everyone watching this recording. This session has been one of the most inspiring Hult Prize training webinars that we ever had. So thank you so much for that. I believe that you answered most of the FAQs that we've been getting from the community around the challenge, the scorecard, the on-campus finals. So that's exciting. Now I'm gonna call everyone watching us live to action and to ask questions. We're gonna be having a quick Q&A session, maybe for the next 10 to 15 minutes. I'm gonna start with the first question that I got privately around the scorecard. The question was about the prototypes, and it says, will I be penalized if I don't present a prototype during my on-campus final?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Hamdi. I'm just going back to the slide. So the prototype comes in around the traction element, but it also comes in the idea element. So a prototype helps us to know if the idea is actually real or possible, so to speak. And then also if you've made a prototype, you've done traction, like great, you've actually done something. When you say, will I be penalized or not? It's the wrong way of looking at this. One, you definitely want a prototype to know if you're on the right track or not. And if you don't know how to prototype, because you literally can prototype in 24 hours with no money, there's always a way. But if you don't know, I would suggest you look into the Lean Startup and you look at how to prototype with a video or how to prototype even with a brochure. There's many advice out there how you can really just do a very basic prototype to figure out if you're on the right track and get early feedback. Now, again, at this stage or at the on-campus final, you are competing against the other teams. So it's not like you're penalized, but maybe if other teams have done a prototype, they may be seen as better than you, so to speak. But I've seen many teams win on campus with no prototype, and I've seen many teams on campus win with a prototype. Figure out what it is you can do to use your time the best until you get to the on-campus final.
Nice. I see another interesting question about innovations. Is it possible to bring changes on ideas that already exist in the market?
Phil, do you want to take it?
Yeah, let me try that one. So the whole notion of that, putting together your recipe, our slide about the recipe, how many new recipes are there in the world? Almost every recipe is something that is a combination of something that has been tried before. And so innovation is really about finding those elements of something that exists, but putting them together in a novel combination and really creating, your own dish. And so I actually really believe in this notion of culinary metaphors for innovation. I think that innovation in the kitchen is a great example, not just a metaphor for innovation, generally speaking. So, absolutely be looking for the best out there that you can bring to, a new geography, that you can bring to a new market, where you can find inspiration or technology in one place, apply it in a place that hasn't been applied before. We're looking for systemic change, but that systemic change could come from combination of existing proven elements. That's really kind of your creativity and your team's creativity, and the participants' creativities to figure that out, how to act within the system to make real change and to reach, whether it's directly or indirectly through the system, 10 million people. But the wow factor can often be like, wow, you did something that has been done for 200 years, but you did it in a really novel way, or you did it in a place or towards an intent that's never been done before. So yeah, look for those analogies, look for those new combinations. Of course, if there's something truly unique, that's wonderful, but that's going to be extremely rare. Most of the time it's combining existing ingredients in a new way.
Great, great. Thank you, Phil. Another question that we got a couple of times is around the SDGs. How can I incorporate the SDGs in my pitch to emphasize on my impact?
Callum,
maybe, yeah, I can take that. So SDGs have done an amazing job of looking at what are the biggest problems, so to speak, that we face in the world, and then looking into some of the root causes of those problems and tremendous amount of research around those problems. You do not need to make a pitch to solve the SDGs. You need to make a business to solve the food for good challenges. If those food for good challenges align with you and you align to one of those SDGs, then you can put it into your presentation to explain in essentially the impact part, what impact are you having? Or you can use it in the problem part where you explain what is the problem that you're facing. It is not required. It is sometimes good because judges can understand it quickly, like which SDG is being solved, but we are not an SDG challenge.
Great. Callum, I saw a question, like a direct question to you, saying that, hey, Callum, I know that you were one of the Hult Prize Award ceremony and finals competitors. Do you have any tips that you want to share with us based on your personal experience?
I mean, I think all of my personal experiences have now been put into Hult Prize and essentially these slides. But I guess if I ever want to give one piece of advice is just make sure your team is really aligned and really honest with each other. And it is totally okay if someone is in the team just for fun. And it's okay if someone's in the team and they're like crazy committed and they want to work every single day. But if you don't have that conversation with each other and you don't get around on the same page, then you're going to definitely fail sooner or later. And then the rest of everything else doesn't really matter. All businesses are built by people. All problems are created by people. So you need to get the people around that want to be around and are aligned and ready to like change the business model if needed, help you reach the next milestone. You get $1 million, it's not over anyway. You've still got to really keep building your company. So yeah, this is the biggest element for everyone.
Great. Thanks for those personal tips, Callum. Another question is around the badges, the 8 badges that we had in this presentation. And the question is, should I actually integrate all of the 7 badges? And another question around that is about where to start exactly. Like, should I start with the badges and then work on identifying a solution within that badge, or should I actually work on identifying the solution and then see what kind of badges my startup is actually covering?
Yeah, I think we're both going to want to have something to say about that. But as always, you want to start with the real problem in the real world. And so, when you look at that supply chain, it gives you an idea of what the food system is. And you want to start with some problem that somebody faces within the food system that you can solve. And then when you think about what is going to be the impact dimension of that, you want to focus on one pathway, one of these 7. And again, it could be an 8th that's not there. But there really should be a primary objective of your startup in terms of the pathway for impact. But I think what you're going to find very soon is that it naturally follows that you also have impact in one or more other areas. So it may be that ultimately, a venture has impact across 2, 3, or 4. But the scoring is not based on how many of these dimensions of impact you reach. The scoring is based on the criteria that are in the judge's scorecard. And if you really do a tremendous job of any one of these, then that is absolutely a response to this year's challenge. So I think that we don't want to think about it in terms of accumulating the maximum number of badges possible. It's really accumulating the maximum amount of impact within any badge that you choose. But again, I do think it is going to turn out that most ventures are going to be seeking, responsible environmental stewardship. There may be dimensions of meaningful work, and quite likely are going to be some dimensions of access, but maybe not. If it's a supply chain innovation, it may have impact in other ways. So any one of these is a very rich domain of work, and you certainly don't have to think about, covering all of them or even most of them.
Great.
Yeah, and to add on to what Phil was saying, I would use the badges later. So I would look and try to understand a problem that I really want to solve and is close to my heart. If I can't find one, I can use some of these badges to look at, what are some inspiration, right? Access, like that may give you inspiration, like, I want to solve this problem of access. But these badges are going to be better used for providing inspiration around the solution, and then eventually helping to quantify your impact. So imagine you've come up with, you've done your research, you've identified a problem you want to solve, you've kind of started to build the solution, and actually you have your business put together. And then you look at, say, badge number 3, environmental stewardship. And you'd be like, am I being good for the environment or not? How could I be better? And then you may start to innovate in terms of your own business practices, like packaging, or in terms of your energy sources, or the food waste that you might be creating, for instance. So you can look at these more as giving you some inspiration on how to strengthen, but you 100% do not need all of them.
Nice. The last question that we're going to take now is around the target markets. So I saw this question coming a lot. Should I start from my own local community, or can I work on providing a solution that would be applicable in a country that I'm not based at?
Do you want to go, Phil?
No, you go ahead. You go ahead now.
Yeah. Okay. So there's 2 sides to the argument. One, you need to identify a market and a scalable market where you can reach the 10 million goal over the next 10 years. That's the challenge. But if I was you, I would edge on the side of looking locally. The beautiful thing about this year's challenge is that it's everywhere. No matter what country you're in, you're definitely facing a number of these problems. And so you are able to actually take more action when you look locally. You are local experts. You're able to really understand the local market better. So that would be my recommendation. But when I competed in the Hult Prize, I was a foreigner living in China with a couple, 2 Chinese people and 2 other foreigners, and we built a company for India. And only one of us had ever been to India. We didn't win the Hult Prize, but we got to the global finals. So I'm not saying it's not possible. You may come up with an innovation that makes sense for a different market and is scalable in that market because the problem you care about so much is in that market. But it is a little bit of a disadvantage, I would say, on your own. The team, can the team really solve the problem for a market they don't know about?
Great. Thank you so much, Callum. Thank you, Phil. That's it with the Q&A session, I believe, for the moment. We want to respect everyone's time and be on time. I see some questions and comments coming in the chat box. Do not worry, everyone. We will be doing a couple of follow-up sessions, whether through your on-campus programs. We will be sharing the recording and the slides that we used in this training, and we will be in touch with you with more resources as we move forward. Callum, Phil, do you have any closing notes, any last comments?
No, just really excited that all these campus directors were here with us today. Loved seeing the comments and questions coming in on the chat. All the discussion of different foods that people love. I will say it did come up that for those of you that ever have a chance to experience Falafel Link, the falafel is delicious. That did come up. Something we didn't mention. It's actually very delicious. The best I've ever had. We have an opportunity here to build, 1,000, 5,000 tremendous companies. Honestly, I just think it's going to be something we're all going to remember being part of at this time. So thank you guys so much for all the work you're doing for the Hult Prize.
Yeah, and as this call is directed for the campus directors, I guess my advice to campus directors is, get creative, get original. This year's challenge is food for good. Why don't you just have like a mini organic food festival, a cook-off, just get creative. It's not all about business, impact, impact, impact. You can have fun. You can build a community. You can have music going. There's so many things that you can do other than just like, I'm going to have a final. So make sure you have fun with that. And, again, like the campus directors, everything depends on your team. So if you build a good team, wow, your life is going to be easy. You build a not so good team and you don't lead them correctly and you don't take ownership and you don't train them well and you don't share information with them, then your life is going to be very, very difficult. So make sure that you are taking that into consideration over the next couple of weeks and months. And we rely on you so much, and we are so grateful for you, because without you, we wouldn't be able to, reach everyone and actually start building these startups. So, give yourself a mini pat on the back for now, but, a lot of hard work to come. So good luck and, good luck.
Fantastic.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, everyone. On behalf of everyone at the Hult Prize Foundation, thank you for taking a bold move to actually lead the generation to change the world with us. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.
Right.